And what is up, everyone? I'm Joe DeHoyos. I am the host of Beyond the Woodline. And today we have with us Gary. He is, man, I keep wanting to say Beyond the Mist. It's within the mist. Dude, even when I was making the poster, I kept typing Beyond. I was like, it's not Beyond, it's within. I guess because I'm used to writing Beyond the
Well,
Woodline.
it's kind of neat. It's kind of neat because both of our titles really match together. I
Right,
mean,
you
you have
know?
Beyond the Woodline and we are Within the Mist. Pretty much covers that whole idea that what we're looking for is not in the right there in front of us. You have to go out for it.
Right, yeah. And so that's where I kind of got the name Beyond the Woodline. Like I was telling you before we came on, I do the whole Bigfoot thing. That's what started me into all this stuff. Um, so when I started doing that, and I started to say, you know what, I want to get into more into paranormal, more into UFO stuff. So for me, beyond the woodline is what made sense,
Absolutely.
you know, and we so yeah, yeah. So is that what kind of you got the your name from?
Well, yeah. For us, it was like there's always these shadowy stories that you hear.
Right,
You get a little bit of it. A friend of a friend tells you something. But when you go into the mist and you actually search out those shadows, you can find there's a great deal more to the story.
right,
So that's kind of what we do. We get a tidbit, we start going down the rabbit hole, and
right.
before you know it, we have multiple sightings of ghosts, cryptids, or other mysteries. So that's what
Mhm.
we do. We look in the shadows.
Yeah, and that's you're gonna find the best stuff, And it's funny. I recently met a friend of mine who's very much into the UFO stuff, but on their own, more or less. They're not necessarily researching; they're doing it for for their own, I guess, validation and justification of what they're seeing. And so now when I go out, man, I'm always looking up in the sky, always looking in the sky, because you're not gonna find nothing looking in the ground, for the most part, unless you're out in the woods looking for tracks. But if you're just out in the city or even in countryside, if you're not looking up in the air, you're not gonna see a UFO. And uh,
Well, what's neat is that you can go and I grew up in Massillon, Ohio, a small town, and then I joined the military and traveled around for the next 20 years. And every place I ever went to, there's always some part of the woods, some house, some area that has a story to it. So it's easy to go around and find those. So
right,
yeah, you can find it up in the sky. You can find it in an empty building. You can find it in the wood lines behind the building. So you
right.
just got to keep your eyes open.
Yeah. So what like got you involved in this genre, if you will?
Okay. Pretty much I started out because I'm a geek and I'd always been a fan of stories. Growing
Right.
up, bedtime stories and books, I was an avid reader and so forth. Then Dungeons and Dragons kind of came out when I was like 9.
Mhm.
And I've been given a monsters compendium book, and that pretty much describes all the creatures, gives you all the stats and stuff, which was really fascinating. So I started reading all those. They talked about dwarves, elves, and bugbears. And then someone came to me and said, "Do you know those actually exist?" And I was like, "What?" And then they took me into our library and showed me this one little section that had, books about the supernatural stuff. And so I started reading about all these encounters and stories. And in fact, started reading all this background information of stuff that even happens in Ohio, the Loveland Frog, the Grass Man. And then I really got hooked when I started reading articles about the Mothman, because the Mothman, the Silver Bridge, connects Ohio to West Virginia. And so all of a sudden, all of my fictional stories all were based on a true story.
Mhm.
So that really got me hooked. And like I said, once you start reading about these, you may start in one subject, and before you know it, you're in a rabbit hole about
Mhm.
another subject, and the whole world opens up to you. So that's kind of what I find myself as, is more of an avid reader, librarian type of collecting folklores and urban legends.
Okay, yeah, yeah. That's kind of like yeah, that's kind of like what I did because, like I said, I just wanted to start learning more about the paranormal and UFO stuff and different cryptids for that matter. And when people are out in the woods, they claim to see Bigfoot cloaking or jump through portals and what have you. And I necessarily don't subscribe that Bigfoot itself does that, but I do believe that there's are other entities out there that that people are actually seeing. And I would never call anyone a liar or say that's not what you saw, but that's just my opinion. That's what I think they did see, And um,
And this is
but
true.
yeah,
We are
yeah,
very careful not to call anyone a liar because
right,
to them, what they saw is true.
right,
I mean,
right,
and there is, to most of these people, there is no way to convince them otherwise. You could
right,
say, oh, it was a weather balloon, or it was a man in a suit, or you were drunk.
right,
Them, perception is reality.
right. Or tell them that they saw a bear, in areas that there are no bears, or the
Right.
bears certainly don't run on 2 feet for 200 yards, at lightning quick speed, and so yeah, I would never call anyone a liar, but I have my own opinion, and as long as I keep it respectful and they keep it respectful, then there shouldn't be any issues with that. At least that's what I think.
I
Um,
agree.
yeah. Let's see who has. I used to believe that there were not dimensional beings until I started working with Out Past Paranormal, and you are in the presence of beings, and your camera equipment starts acting funny, and battery starts to drain. There is something more to this entity than biology, and I agree with you to a certain degree. And I wish I knew who you were, but I also know for a fact, but I've heard rumors that there are uh, agencies that can mess with your equipment, and uh, I don't want to say too much because I hate to put the government on the spot and get a mark on my back. But I think there are people, agencies that have equipment that can mess with your equipment, and you would think automatically, well, this is what's causing it. And I say that because um, a friend of mine who had an encounter, we talked about that right before we came on the air. He ran into a guy out in the woods, out in the freaking middle of a dirt road, and he took him directly to this place where he had his encounter. He goes, "Oh, you guys want to see a Bigfoot? I'm going to take you to go see it." He took him out there, right? And these guys were scared shitless, except for him. He
Okay.
wasn't worried not one single bit. And not only that, but they recorded him because they recorded the conversation that they had with him. His voice did not come out on that recorder.
Really?
Yeah. Yes. His voice did not
Well,
come out on that recorder. He knew where these Bigfoot were at, and when we've gone out there or we've had equipment fail, we bought like
okay.
two brand new packs of 16-pack AA batteries, and none of them worked. We got back to my friend's house, and they worked. So I don't think that these entities, the Bigfoot, do this. I think there are people out in the woods. Either they have equipment out there to mess with your equipment, or they're out there themselves and they're waiting to see you and then zap your
Well,
equipment.
I mean, I hate to say this, but it's not just governments nowadays that have equipment that can interfere with, your recordings and stuff. I mean, that's why we have the term trolls.
Right.
Any
Right.
individual can go into any electronics store and buy equipment that will interfere with you. So those who want to hide what they see and keep it to themselves could also be involved in that kind of an activity.
Yeah. Yeah. And I totally agree with that too, man. But again, I'm not going to call anyone a liar or say that's not what happened to your equipment. And I just don't think Bigfoot itself does that. But I think there are other entities out there that are jumping through portals and cloaking and disappearing before people's eyes. And I've known good people, family members, that have told me, no, these things disappeared. I've seen it disappear. Uh, one of my cousins told me they were on their grandpa's land, and there was like 20 of them. There were younger kids, and they saw it and they followed it, and it's as they're looking at it that it just vanished, just disappeared.
I mean,
Yeah,
that's kind of the whole story behind Skinwalker Ranch is
right.
that
Yeah,
it's a portal mecca.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Portals
There's
open
something
up and
going on there.
disappear consistently.
Yeah, and I told him too that this is my buddy Ken. He's the one who made that statement earlier. He knows I love him.
Okay.
Um, but um, he he told me, he says, "No, Joe, this is what I saw. We all saw it. There were like 20 of us there. We all saw it, But they had actually seen it on their property, quite a few times also, And I mean, he saw what he saw, and he had witnesses there with him that saw it too. So, I'm not
And,
going to say, well, that's
and
not
that's
what
going
you
to
saw,
stay with them forever.
right? Yeah, yeah. So, what about you yourself? Have you had any paranormal activity or experiences?
No, actually, I am very boring. I am the guy with his eyes wide open and never sees squat. Uh,
Really?
yeah, I because I'll collect all the data, get all the research, do everything right, but I'm just a jinx or something like that. I have not. Everyone around me has, and
Yeah.
I'm quite open to it. It just hasn't happened for me yet.
Yeah. Well, my first paranormal experience was I just turned 50 earlier this month, November 2nd.
Oh, happy
Um,
birthday!
yeah, thank you, buddy. Appreciate it. Scorpios rule too, for that matter. But I my first paranormal experience wasn't until I was maybe 42, 43 years old. Even though I had always believed in it and always knew it, uh, we moved into a house, and I mean, with like the first couple of days, I felt somebody sitting on the bed. You know,
Okay,
I felt, and I know who this is. This is Dr. William Lester. He's a good guy, man. Good, really good guy. If you have any to have any show, if you ever need a guest, I'll hook you up with
absolutely.
him. Yeah, he's a doctor in anthropology, as a matter of fact.
Okay,
Yeah, but yeah, I felt somebody sitting on a bed. One time I was like maybe like 6 o'clock in the morning, getting ready to go to work. I used to go in at 7 o'clock, and I felt somebody like jab me in the ribs. You've had somebody poke you in the ribs before, or you poke somebody
oh
else in the
yeah,
ribs. It's the same exact sensation. You know, my kids too. They were all like tapped on their shoulder. My daughter one day she was there playing her video game, and I seen her do like that. And she turned around to look at me. I had just came into the house from work, and she looked at me like that, and she was like, she had that look like she wanted to tell me to stop, but she knew I was
right.
standing way too far from her to do it. So she
So she
started,
was sure it was you, but she was also sure it wasn't you.
yeah, yeah. We had a pretty good EVP one night. She saw a black shadow go from one corner of the room to the other corner.
Wow.
Faucets would come on by themselves. Yeah,
Okay.
it was a fun house, man. Nothing really scary. Um, Here, I'm telling you everything about. I'm supposed to be interviewing you. I'm sorry, but
You're fine.
but yeah,
That's right. This is the stuff I live for.
yeah. Uh, One night I woke up and it was like man 2 o'clock in the morning. I woke up. I saw a black figure standing next to my bed, and it moved towards me. And I threw a kick at it. I said,
Right.
"Get back, motherfucker!"
Well, I
Like
mean,
I
there's a
was.
lot of stories about night hags, and
Yeah,
that's how they come on is coming in through the shadows, and then all of a sudden, you feel this physical presence on you, generally on your chest,
right.
as they're pushing you down. So, I mean, there's been stories about night hags all the way past the medieval times. So
Yeah,
that kind of a sensations, those kind of experiences are well documented.
right. Yeah, yeah. That shadow figure or whatever you want to call it. I got scared. You know what I'm saying? After I replayed it, and I've been replaying it for years and years, it's like I'm the one that got scared. I'm the one that freaked out. It never moved aggressively towards me or did anything to me. I guess if it wanted to, it surely could have. You know,
Right. And there's always that potential, but when that adrenaline's running and you're actually experiencing it, that
yeah,
doesn't come across. It's when you're back at home and you're like, I could have been in trouble.
right. So have you done any kind of investigations yourself? Have you done any paranormal investigations?
Yeah, I've done many of them, and then did a bunch of ghost tours, did a bunch of background research, and it's kind of cool.
Did you break up? Uh,
Lost you for a second.
yeah, I lost you too.
Um,
But you're good.
are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me? I can hear you.
Sorry, I lost connection. I can't hear you right now.
Can you hear me now? Hear me now? You can't hear me?
I've lost all audio on you.
I can still hear you.
I cannot hear you. I don't know if
No,
you can hear me. Can you give
yeah,
me a
I can
thumbs
hear
up
you.
if you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Huh. That's very weird.
Hey, anybody
Let
else
me
let me know if they can hear me. I want to see what's on my end. Thank you for that, Ken. Hey, can anybody else hear me? Just let me know in the chat if you can hear me.
turned off the mic and turned it back on. I don't know if that helped.
Well, this sucks. Uh,
Uh, Here we are getting into that interference that you were talking about.
right. Yeah. They didn't like it.
Because, yeah, I've lost all ability to hear you.
Okay. 1 minute. Okay. Can
There.
you hear me now?
Yep, I just restarted everything and I'm back.
Okay. Okay. But you can hear me now.
Yes, I can.
Okay. Good deal. That's good. Yeah. Maybe the spirits didn't like me telling their secrets.
Yeah,
Mhm.
had that one of those shadows reach over and grab the volume
Yeah,
control.
there you go. But
But no, as I was saying,
go ahead.
I have participated on, and because I've done background research on things, once you start talking to the owners of locations and stuff like that, once they know that you know the background, they're pretty open about letting you nose around the area.
Yeah. So where have you gone to check out to investigate?
Generally, there's we've done the Castillo house in St. Augustine. St. Augustine in and of itself is pretty much ghost central with the number of people who have lived and died in the city. And then we've also done some exploring around I'm going to make sure I pronounce this right because I don't want to get in trouble. The Marino Museum in Key West, where Robert the Doll is kept. Hence why I have to make sure I say it right. I don't want to be getting Robert upset with me.
Mhm.
So done a couple of different little areas. But most
Um,
of the time we try and focus on the cryptids, the undiscovered animals, because there's been a lot. I mean, you look at it, the gorilla was only discovered less than a century ago. The coelacanth
right,
was supposed to be extinct, and
right,
fishermen started pulling it up in the 1920s. I think we have a better opportunity of discovering something that's never been seen before than anything else.
right. Yeah. Um, have you actually gone out into certain areas to investigate or do any kind of research with cryptids?
Yeah, I've been to the areas of where the Miaka skunk ape has been in southern Florida.
Okay.
So I believe that you hear sounds and so forth, different howls and the different sticks breaking on woods, but nothing I could do conclusively.
Right. Yeah, that's the way it goes sometimes. Sometimes you're just out there camping, and there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing
Yeah,
wrong
but
with
as
sitting
we've been
around.
doing our show, every time we do an episode, it's like we put a new pin in a map of someplace we want to go visit.
Right. Yeah. So where are you at? Are you actually in Florida?
Yeah, actually, I live in just outside of Orlando, so just outside of the Mouse of House.
Okay. That's pretty good. Yeah, my
Hmm.
daughter lived outside of Jacksonville for a while.
Okay,
Yeah. Yes, I forgot what little small town it was, but she lived outside of Jacksonville, and
gotcha.
then yeah, now she lives all the way in California. She made a drive all the way out there to move.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
see, I was born in Ohio, but I can't handle the cold weather anymore. So
Mhm.
uh, when I retired from the military, I just decided I was picking someplace warm and ended up in the middle of Florida.
Happy Veterans Day, man! Thanks a lot for your service. I appreciate that.
Oh, yeah, this is being done on Veterans Day. Oh,
Yeah,
thank
man.
you.
Hey, thanks a lot, man. My son is a Marine. He'll be getting
Oh,
out in three
well,
months. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yesterday was the Marine Corps' birthday.
Yeah, man. Yeah, he had a blast. He
They
got to see.
usually do.
He had Ted Nugent played at their base. Yeah,
Gotcha.
Ted Nugent played there. He's a big supporter of the military.
And that's a
Um,
neat thing about the military as well, is that there's so many battlefields and a lot of ghost stories take place in those locations. I mean, Gettysburg alone has almost 20 different ghost stories that exist just in that one location. But you could go to any famous battlefield and talk to the historians there, and they'll tell you, oh, there's a soldier that comes riding through the hills at in the certain nights and so forth. So I think the emotions, the raw emotions and the drama and the fear and the death that occurs on battlefields themselves focuses a lot of paranormal activity.
Right. Yeah. Of course, here in Texas, there were quite a few battles here in Texas, throughout the years, and not just the Civil War, but also like with Mexico and Spain, and so there's a lot of activity throughout Texas. I think there's a lot more activity than what people think. And to go back to the
Well,
Bigfoot thing, I think there's a lot of paranormal activity that gets thrown in there and then people mistake for Bigfoot.
well, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because a nice thing about Texas is that I used to be stationed in San Antonio, and
Oh,
that
nice.
is where the Alamo is.
Right.
And of course, there's so many ghost stories about the reenactment of the Alamo going on certain nights.
Right. Yeah, that whole area, yeah, all the way around San Antonio, there's a lot of battlefields in that whole area. The battles took place. It wasn't just in the Alamo. There was a lot of
True.
fighting. I mean, all the way past Houston, which is the San Jacinto, where they had the final battle with Mexico. Uh,
Right.
right. So yeah, Texas has seen a lot of tragedy,
Well, and it
unfortunately.
also has a lot of the Native Americans, being moved, and a lot of tragedies that occurred to them throughout the years that kind of focuses some of their natural energies into those places too.
Yeah. And another great place to probably go is would be like New Orleans. I mean, how much stuff has New Orleans seen? The city, I mean, everything from pirates to mobs to
Voodoo and
voodoo. Yeah, that place
yeah,
is
actually,
ridiculous.
we're visiting some family in Louisiana.
Mhm.
If you ever hear the podcast, you'll definitely hear the Cajun accent. My wife,
Okay.
she was raised in Louisiana, so we're going next weekend to visit some family. So
Nice.
yeah, we're going to be checking out some spots as well.
Okay. Cool. Cool. What does y'all's family think about you guys doing this podcast and doing this stuff? And
Well, my brother's really cool with it because he has actually seen it driving home one night with our aunt. He had seen a UFO, or what he believes is a UFO, because he saw a light that moved, abnormally. My daughter's really enjoys it because she's seen things in the woods that she couldn't explain.
Mhm.
Like I said, everyone around me sees it. It's just I seem to miss it every time. So they've all been great supporters. And like I said, I'm always the one that has the answers. They said, "Well, I heard something in the woods." Well, that area of the Pine Barrens is where the Jersey Devil is said to be exists. And then they'll describe it and say, "This is what the story was behind it."
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens when Gary comes back.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Gotcha.
So I guess, yeah, as there's something happening with my phone, it keeps wanting to turn on this alarm for me.
Mhm.
Uh, but what I was saying is that all my family come to me because I seem to have all the answers, or I can fill in the blank spots of what they've experienced. So it's kind of been a running joke that they're the Buffy squad and I'm the Giles. So I'm the guy who's
Oh,
the librarian of the whole
there you go.
story, and they're the ones that are actually having the adventures.
There you go. I like that. Yeah. Yeah. I'm always the guy that people contact, like whether it's family or friends or coworkers, and they'll they might make fun of me, which is all good fun, whatever.
Well, yeah.
They poke, hey, did you find Bigfoot this weekend? Every Monday I come to work, did you find Bigfoot this weekend? But they were all my one friend in particular. He would always give me a hard time, but he would always be the one to pull me to the side and ask me questions to tell me his experiences and stuff like that. I
That's
like
usually
that.
how it works. Is the one that is the most vocal disbeliever is actually the one that has the experience that they believe the most.
Right. Yeah. And well, that one coworker in particular, he had a friend who lived up near the Sam Houston forest who had a dog ripped in half.
Oh
Uh,
no.
yeah, he had three dogs, and he called me one day. He goes, "Hey man, I want to talk to a friend of mine. He lives out there, near the Sam Houston, and uh, he came home and one of his dogs was torn in half." I'm like, really? This? Yeah. So we set up a meeting, and I went to go talk to the guy. Uh, he's like, I don't know if it's a gator or not. And I said, well, do you live near a creek? He's like, yeah, I live near a creek. I said, how much water's in that creek? And there goes Walter. Yeah, I don't think I ever told Walter this story. Well, yeah, Walter, I'll tell you this. You'll hear it now, Walter. Um, so he lived near a creek, but there's no water in this creek. It was always dry. And I said, well, you know, a gator wouldn't just tear a dog in half and leave, you know.
Right.
Um, um, so we started talking about it, and he's like, and I asked him, I said, tell me about this dog. You know, what was special about this dog? He goes, that dog was my alarm dog. Out of the three dogs, this was the dog that would bark at anything it saw. You know, and he had them all chained up because otherwise they'd take off running through the woods. So it had
Gotcha.
nowhere to go. And when it was dead right next to the doghouse. So it wasn't like the chain was, was pulled taut or anything. And um, whatever killed it right there at the doghouse. And I said, that's probably what happened. He was barking at these things, giving them away. And they were like, okay, we'll shut this dog up, you know.
Yeah,
And
those are the kind of stories my wife, she gets freaked out the most. She's one of those, you can do anything you want in the movie, but if you kill the dog, then it's over. So
right,
we had just did a story about the grass man, and I had to be very careful because one of the stories, involves, the family dog running after it, and then they finding the dog later,
right,
basically broken in half.
right.
And it's tough because these dogs are there protecting us, but they're very much outmatched by what's out there in the woods.
Yeah. Hey, Walter, if you're listening to the show, can I tell him about the hog? You're the one that found the hog. Can I tell him about it? Just give me a thumbs up or just say yes. So Walter, he's the guy that I told you that had the encounter where we went, and he saw the 9.5 foot one. Walter's such a great guy, man. He's a Marine, former Marine also.
All right.
And yeah, um, yeah. He says yes, sir. So Walter went out there through his air because we'd always leave recorders and cameras out there, which we still do to this day. We've got some really good audio, man. I need to send you some of this stuff. I've got branches breaking, snapping. We've got a pretty good growl. We heard this growl. It was in January of this year, which I don't know if you know, but here in Texas we had a really cold winter this year. You
Okay.
know, and people when they were here, they were like, "Man, that sounds like a gator," but them gators aren't out. You know, not in this cold as weather. But
Right.
I need to send you that recording. That was a crazy growl. And but Walter went to go check on some cameras one day, and he took a picture. He had the picture of the hog with no head on it. Something ripped its head off.
Really?
Yeah, yeah,
Was it
yeah.
ripped, or was it like bitten or cut, or was it just like basically grabbed with two hands and pulled?
It was definitely ripped off. It wasn't cut.
Wow.
It was ripped. You
So
know.
imagine the
So
kind of strength in that.
yeah, yeah. Even though it was a big hog, and I've killed 150-pound hogs, which aren't as big as you would think, but they're still 150-pound hogs. You're not ripping that damn thing's head off. You know.
No.
Yeah,
And they have quite a temper themselves. So
yeah.
they aren't the little bacon on four legs that you would think. They can bite and they can hurt someone pretty bad
They
too.
can kill you.
Yeah.
We had a lady outside of Houston this year, at least within the year, she got killed by some hogs. Yeah,
Wow. Yeah,
yeah,
that
yeah.
reminds me of my first field exercise when I was stationed in Germany. We would set up a camp. We were on the post, but we were out in the field area, and they told me, "Do not go out there at night by yourself." And I'm thinking, why? This sounds silly because we're on post. There's no real danger, no problems with that. And they said no because there's pigs out there.
Yeah.
And I'm from Ohio. Okay, I've been around pigs. It's not that big of a deal. And it wasn't until that morning when, I woke up and we were coming outside of the tent, I saw what they meant by pigs. I mean, these were 200 pounds German tusk bearing razorbacks.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I kind of understood then why I wasn't supposed to go out
Every
at night by myself.
every single person I talked to from that was stationed in Germany has a hog story. It's so funny.
Well, the thing is that Grafenwehr is the depot where they get rid of MREs. And if you're not really familiar with MREs, they're
Yeah,
really high calorie.
right.
So when you put those in a dump and the pigs can get to that dump, I mean, they are very well fed. So they grow to enormous sizes
Right.
in Germany. So they actually have hunting clubs that specialize in just hunting down these boars.
Right. Oh, yeah, they have that here in Texas. They actually have a place you can near College Station where A&M is at. You can get on a helicopter and go shoot them.
Whoa.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's pretty
See,
cool.
that's what I'm sure it's going to be an incident like that where someone's going out hunting for something else and they're going to run into the the Sasquatch or Bigfoot, and then they're going to have to make that decision. Do I let it go and then just have a story, or am I going to actually shoot, kill, and get the physical proof? That's going to be a hard decision for
Yeah,
someone to make someday.
yeah, yeah. And I've talked to people who have shot them. You know, uh, I think nearly every single one of them were in fear of their life. Who shot it. Whether it was necessarily aggressive towards them or not, but they were scared enough to where they pulled the trigger. And that's one of those things too. But I won't judge anyone. If you're scared enough, any human being will do whatever they got to do to defend themselves. And so I'll never judge anyone who pulls the trigger on one of these things.
Well, I
Unless they're
mean,
just out there looking to cold bloodedly kill one, it's a whole
well,
different
yeah.
thing. But
Well, I
um,
mean, you hear stories about what is it? I think there's 1,400 people disappear in public parks and
right,
systems like that every year. So,
yeah,
what are happening to these people?
yeah. Some of them are hunters who have
Yeah.
weapons on them. Yeah, yeah. It's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy. I love the whole cryptid stuff. And here in Texas, we actually have a big uh, dogman experiences and encounters here. So um, that's pretty cool. I think I've never seen one, or at least I think I've seen one, but
Well, I think
it's
the
nice.
Dogman is a rapidly growing cryptid. A number
Mhm.
of cases of people seeing not a werewolf but an actual dog man has
Right.
been increasing. Like Michigan is, I think they've had like 20 different stories come out of this year of
Yeah.
sightings of a dog man.
Right.
So,
Yeah. Man, I wish Walter. We need to jump on here, Walter, so you can tell your story about your friend. Um, but yeah, that Dogmans have some pretty cool stories here, man. And even there's a couple here in the Sam Houston. There's even more in the Davy Crockett, and that's an area that I really want to go check out. Davy Crockett, which is a
okay.
little bit further north. The Sam Houston is like an hour north of Houston. David Crockett is like 2 hours north of Houston.
Okay.
That
And what's
actually has
really neat about the dog man is that, uh, you know, the stories of dogmen go all the way far back as Egypt. I mean, you think of Anubis and those, the gods had dog heads.
okay,
Marco Polo on his trip from Italy to China wrote about meeting a tribe of dog-headed people
right.
that helped him on his trip along. So there have been stories about dog-headed people in Europe, in China, in Egypt. So it wouldn't be surprising that they now are starting to pop up in North America.
So you said you were in San Antonio. How long ago was that?
I was there 91 to 93.
Do you remember a town called Converse?
Yes.
Okay, I actually lived in outside. I lived in Universal City.
Okay.
I lived, man, 5 minutes from Randolph. We could hear
Yep.
taps, reveille, the national anthem. So I lived in Universal City for a couple of years. But right next to Universal City is Converse. They have the Converse werewolf. Have you heard of that?
No. No, I'm not
Yes.
aware of
Yeah.
that one.
Google it, man. Yeah, you can find it. So when I was out there, I was working with a guy, and I saw him. He had a Bigfoot shirt on, and I was like, I said, dude, what's up with your shirt? And he told me, oh man, me and my dad were into the whole Bigfoot thing. We love watching all the shows. So right away, I told him, I said, dude, I go out looking for Bigfoot. I research and whatever. And he goes, dude, have you ever heard of the Converse werewolf? I'm like, no. He said, yeah, man, they told us about that when we were in school, like in elementary. And I said, well, what happened? So I looked it up, and I think it was like in the 1820s or 1880s. Um, a farmer out there in Converse, he sent his son out to go hunting. His son came back and said, Dad, there's a monster out there, or something scared him. And his dad goes, there's nothing out there. You're just scared. You need to go out there and finish your hunt. Kid never came back. Um,
Mm.
like the next morning, or maybe even two days later, but not very much longer. Uh, the father gathered a couple of guys with him, and they went looking for his son, and they found his son. But when they found him, they found a creature that was hunkered over him, eating away at the kid, and they described it as a werewolf. And they tried to shoot it, but they said it was moving way too fast for them to shoot.
I see. And
Yeah,
see, yeah. like I said, every town there's going to be, a legend that uh, will suck you in, and then once you start reading into it, yeah, more and more comes out. So
Yeah,
you
and
figure it, there's like 1,000 stories every year come out about something paranormal. If only one of those is true,
right,
that proves that paranormal exists.
right.
You
It's
know,
just like with all the Bigfoot tracks. There's thousands and thousands of Bigfoot tracks
yeah,
every year. If one of them is real, then the creature's real.
exactly. And like all
Yeah,
the hair samples that get found, if just one can be proven to belong to, something between man and ape, bam, that's all you need.
right, right. Yeah. I lost train of talk where I was gonna talk about the dog man. But yeah, man, yeah. Check it out. Um, I like listening to and finding out that different towns have their own creatures. Um, I was lucky enough to go to the Arkansas, Falk, Arkansas,
Okay.
and yeah, and I actually got to go onto the Crabtree property. I don't know if you remember the Crabtrees, but they were one of the families that were shown in the Legend of Boggy Creek.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, and so I got to go onto their property and go check it out. Um, there's a story in the book about they have a skeleton, and they never say what the skeleton is, you know. But very few people have ever seen this skeleton, and I was fortunate enough to look at it. It is the creepiest looking skeleton that you've ever seen. It's got these
Okay.
big, long looking fingers with these knobby knuckles. I was like, well, what the hell is this damn thing? And it still stunk. You could still smell it. It was still, yeah. They got it like in this big glass case, and but what it was a tiger.
Oh,
And
wow.
creatures look so weird when they don't have their muscles and tissues or skin on
Yeah.
them. You know, yeah. If you ever seen like a hippo skull or a rhinoceros skull, it looks like some kind of prehistoric monster. If you didn't know what you were looking at,
Well, I mean, that's where the whole legend of dragons came from.
right?
You would have all these people finding dinosaur bones, and then they would just, imagine the kind of creatures that, you had these kind of dinosaur bones, and bam, before you know it, dragons existed. So we always want to fill in the blanks. That's why it's important that, we do complete scientific checks on everything.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so we got to go. Well, I got to go to the Crabtree property. A friend of mine, he knew the Crabtrees and the widow, so I was able to go on there and check it out. And I was like one of the last people, if not the last person, to go onto their property because shortly after that they sold it. So
Okay.
yeah, so
Well,
that was
you were
pretty.
very lucky then.
Yeah, yeah,
That's a very cool story for you to have.
yeah. And of course, going to the Monster Mart, which is a famous uh, little convenience store. It's pretty cool. They got casts and stuff there. The whole town really is. It's just a cool little area to go visit if you ever get a chance to. It's one of the meccas of the Bigfoot world, and probably the other mecca would be Bluff Creek,
Oh,
where
yes.
Patterson and Gimlin filmed their
Yep.
Patty. So, what do you think about that film, the Patterson Gimlin film? Do you have an
Um,
opinion on that?
to be unfortunate, I mean, the technology is so outdated that there's no way to prove it one way or the other. The important thing to know is that it sparked so much interest and so much debate that the topic of Bigfoot and whether he exists or not would never have been uh, as vocal as it is without that film. So if it was a fake, it had a positive effect on the field. If it's true, then it's only a matter of time before we can repeat that film and repeat it with better technology to prove it. So I think it's a positive either way.
Right. Yeah. Um, there's a gentleman by the name of Bill Munns. He's actually worked like on the original Planet of the Apes and the Planet of the Apes with Mark Wahlberg. He was a costume
Right.
designer.
I'm okay. I see. Yes, and he
Yeah.
tried to recreate the suit and so forth.
Yeah. And he was saying he goes, yeah, he goes, you could put a man in the suit, right? He goes, you definitely could do that. But what you can't do is change uh, the joints from the elbows, I mean, from the shoulder to the elbow to the wrist, because everything on this creature was not in proportion to a human proportion. The hips to the knees,
Exactly.
the knees to the ankles, all that was way off.
That's
So,
what I mean. There's so much that, is very believable about it.
right,
It's just, I wish we had, it had the technology, or, was modern enough that we could prove it one way or the other with the, modern film diagnostic equipment that we have.
right. And then it has breast. I mean, who would think to put
Right.
breast on it?
Definitely female,
Yeah. I mean, who would
which is
think
a detail way too much for, guys to go through, just to create a hoax.
two poor farmers, ranchers, and one of the highlights of my life was I got the chance to meet Bob Gimlin a couple of years ago. You know,
Wow.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I got to meet him, and he's one of the nicest people you'll ever meet. And I'm like, man, there's no way this guy is lying. After all these years, like for years and years and years, he never really came out and talked about it.
I'm sure, yeah, because I'm sure there would be some newspaper or magazine that would offer him a fortune to say, just to say this is fake. Because the magazine would love to have that kind of a scoop. So
Yeah.
he's been offered money to say it's a
Oh, he
fake,
has
and
been.
he hasn't.
Yeah, yeah. I think someone offered like $1 million at one time, and he said no. I don't think.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. Um,
And that's what's great, is that the people who have these experiences it's life-changing experiences, and they're not going to be swayed just because you don't believe in it.
right. Um, so while we're talking about that, what are your thoughts on people who turn in evidence, whether they have something really on film or not, or on pictures, but it's so bad and it's so just out of focus and grainy? Should people put that out as evidence?
I'm of the philosophy that if you put out a million pieces of evidence, that when it's all gets combined, it'll create one surefire piece of evidence.
Okay.
So I am completely fine with putting out the very blurry, the very, shadowed pieces of evidence, because as you're sifting through everything, it'll help centralize and help fine tune what you are actually looking for. So
Okay.
if you see a shadow and you see eyes in the shadow, then if you're looking in the next shadow, you can try and see if you can see the same kind of eyes.
Right.
If you do, then that's something you can focus on for all of the different photos. So I think that posting everything that you have is the best course of action.
Okay. And I agree with you on that. Um, I don't agree on posting one picture. However, I'd like to see multiple pictures. That
Oh,
way I can,
definitely.
at least two or three. That way you can see movement if there is movement. Um, I do have an issue with just grainy and blown up pictures, and again, I'm not calling anyone liar, but if you're gonna put that out there, you have to have thick skin. You have to have the thick skin. You
Yes.
know,
Well,
and yeah,
unfortunately, history has shown that many people who broadcast their experiences are ridiculed, and they definitely ain't making money for it. Like
right,
the famous Kelly Hopkinsville goblins, the Little Green Men, the incident where, the family, had 3 hour standoff with aliens, that
right,
landed in their farm. People kept coming into their property wanting to visit the area where the UFO landed, and these people, were firing their rifles at it. It got
right,
to the point
right.
that the family was actually charging them money. But the minute they did that, the town turned on them.
Hmm.
So they didn't make any money and actually got ridiculed to the point where they had to move.
Right, yeah, yeah, I remember that.
So
Yeah,
unfortunately, the better evidence is not going to get turned in because of fear.
right. Yeah, it's either going to be too blurry to make anything out of it, or it's going to be too good to be true, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So he's talking about a gentleman that me and him got into an argument because he took a picture. He took two pictures, and he said, look, you can see movement from one picture to the other. I'm like, dude, that can be pixelization, you
Oh,
know.
absolutely.
But he took the picture from 800 yards away. 800 yards away. That's half a mile away.
Yeah.
That's almost half a mile. I did the math. It's 0.46 miles. You're not going to take a picture of anything 0.46 miles away and tell me that's a Bigfoot.
No,
How huge would it have to be for you to see it? You
this
know,
is true.
50 feet tall. So yeah, we got into a bit of an argument. And,
But see, even that has some benefits because it allows you to create perimeters of what is acceptable.
Right.
So
Right.
if people don't post that, they can say, "Oh yeah, 800 feet away is perfectly fine." And then when you see it, then you can decide, "Oh no, this is not going to be fine."
Right.
Then you can be more specific about what is going to be qualified proof,
Right. Yeah.
and it's definitely going to be closer than 800 feet.
Yards.
Yards, even
Yeah.
worse.
Yeah. Yeah. But because going out as much as I do, I've got a lot of audio, and if I turned everything in that I thought was a Bigfoot or this is a Bigfoot, I would be laughed out of the community. So I think if you were, I wouldn't be doing anyone any good. You know what I'm saying? I definitely wouldn't be doing the field any favors by turning in mediocre evidence that
But I
I could
bet
probably
you've
go
sifted through all of it, and now by sifting through all of it, you've picked out the gems, the most supportive parts,
right.
correct?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh
See, so
yeah.
that's the benefit.
Yeah, and that's what I release, I guess you could say, to everyone is a really really good quality stuff, and or at least what I consider good quality stuff. And like I said, me and Walter, man, we go out all the time, and we'll we'll share stuff. And here's my buddy Big Dog, uh, Felipe here. I'll share him some stuff and stuff I don't share with anybody else, and he's heard some pretty good stuff from me. Uh, but I just don't release it, just because it's like it's I don't want to saturate the field with crappy audio, you know.
Right. And
Yeah,
but that's what I mean. You've gone through so much stuff that
yeah,
you actually do know what's crappy and what's good stuff.
yeah, yeah. But
Unfortunately, it's mostly other people who take one or two shots. They don't know that, you know, what they saw with their own eyes is not what they're
right,
seeing with their camera.
right. Yeah, and again, I hope I'm not offending anyone because that's not what I'm trying to do. Um, uh, Sending me pictures of wood structures. Thank you, Walter. Appreciate that. Uh, I'm not gonna be able to show it on the show. But, yeah, but we just try to go out there and try to get good evidence and present that. And like I said, man, we sift through. I still have audio. I probably got about 50 hours of audio I haven't even gone through yet. I'm going out this weekend again, so there goes my backlog. But every now and then we'll go through something, man. We'll catch something really good. Like, man, did you hear this growl? Did you hear uh, this howl or scream or something like that? It's always fun to listen to.
Yeah,
And
our latest podcast was about the Grassman, which is basically Ohio's version of Bigfoot. And Cuyahoga Falls State Park, there was two howls that were recorded in that area that are just amazing because you can hear the cars in the background and you can hear the howling of something out there and something howling back, which is
okay,
amazing.
okay, pretty cool stuff. Yeah. Um, have you had any kind of UFO sightings? I don't know if you said that or not, but
Well, like I said, my brother and aunt saw it and I missed it, but no, I have not.
okay. So um, several years ago, man, it was probably a good 20 years ago. I was out fishing with someone in Gallatin. We're on the jetties, and man, he points up to me and says, "Hey, Joe, look!" And he points up to my left, and I look up, and there's this freaking round craft just floating right above us. I mean, it was probably 300 feet above us. A professional baseball player probably could have hit it with a baseball.
Okay.
But it was a typical uh, spacecraft that you see like beaming up the cow or the person that's got the little dome on the bottom. You know,
Okay.
it was that typical craft just cruising right above us. Ever so slowly, no noise, no lights, no wavering. I mean, it was perfectly still, just barely moving, just right above us. Um, well, I won't say several, maybe 3 or 4 miles down the way, there's a private airstrip where there's smaller planes coming in, and you can hear them suckers coming in, just buzzing away. This thing was right above us, made no noise.
So then, what do you think about the new policy of releasing information on UFOs by the government and the Air Force?
I think it's a good policy. However, they're still themselves not saying this is not us. You
Right.
know what I'm saying? So uh,
But do you think they're releasing everything, or do you think
Oh
they're just
no,
releasing enough to make it look like they're releasing stuff?
they're just trying to satisfy certain people, I think, and just here you go, here's some crumbs. We'll throw you some crumbs. Yeah, but they're not going to tell us what they have or what they've caught or if they're in communication with other worlds. Like there's you hear that all the time too, that the government's been in cahoots with alien races or whatever. So they're definitely not going to tell you that. But I think they'll. And then again, the video that they show is grainy video. You know,
Yep.
So and then some of the documents they have, they're redacted. They got the big black marks going through them. So I really don't need the government to tell me that there's UFOs or other life that comes and visit us. Um, big dog. Whatever. But yeah, I mean, I guess it's a good thing. I guess it's a good thing, and I guess they're doing it to a certain degree to say, hey, look, we are trying to show you guys this, but what we have, But it's the same thing with the Bigfoot thing, and they're not going to tell you that it exists, and I don't know if they necessarily care either, really. You know, they care enough to keep it quiet, but um, who knows why they don't want people to know about Bigfoot? I guess one of the theories out there is that if it's some kind of a human, it has human rights now. And anywhere they have logging and or construction, they got to halt all that stuff. And so maybe money is the bottom line. Money is what makes the world go round. So, yeah,
But it does get interesting with what they do release, and it is just the tip of the iceberg of
yeah,
what is actually there in Project Blue Book, and
right.
the warehouse and Area 51 and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Matter of fact, about a month ago now, maybe a month and a half ago, me and Walter were at his house. He lives out near the same Eastern Forest, as a matter of fact. We saw these two lights. We came outside. I was getting ready to go home. I was getting ready to leave, and I looked up and I saw these two lights coming at each other like that. I'm like, what the hell are these? They got real close to each other, and when they got like that, they just started going in circles, just like a perfect
Okay.
little circle. And then they took off. One went one direction, one went the other.
I mean, there have been, UFO stories existed even before, the 1900s. There was, the Battle of the Lights, which
Yeah.
was in a lithogram. They
Hmm.
actually, drew a picture of the light battles of, lights circling around each other. So even ancient civilizations saw these kind of moving lights and didn't know what they were.
Yeah, and there are drawings and paintings of things in the sky when they were in an era where nothing other than a bird should have been in the sky.
And definitely wouldn't have been lit up like that.
Right? Yeah, yeah. So it's pretty cool stuff, man. I really like doing all this stuff and learning and getting knowledge and hearing stories from different people. It's a lot
Yeah,
of
that's my
fun.
favorite part as well.
Yeah, yeah, and I've been lucky to meet some great people, in this field. Walter.
Definitely.
I would never met Walter if it wasn't for Bigfoot. I would never met Big Dog wasn't for Bigfoot. And I got some really good friends that I never would have met if it wasn't for the paranormal and UFOs and uh, Big Dog's seen a lot of crazy stuff looking for Bigfoot. Yeah, he's got a lot of crazy stories himself. Um, I think when you get out in the woods, man, you start seeing crazy stuff. And like I said, some of the best people I've met, I guess other people call them weird.
Well, those are the
you know,
best people to have be friends with.
yeah, man, those are the best people, man. I've got a really, really great friend now, man, who's in the UFO field, man, and I can't imagine, not being friends with this person. So it's really cool.
Yeah, why would you want boring friends?
Yeah, last week on last week's show, I had one of my coworkers who had he doesn't call them near death experience. He says, "No, I died. I died twice."
Okay.
You know, so he doesn't call them near death experiences. He's no, I was on the other side. I was dead. And he wouldn't have told me any of this story if it wasn't for the fact that I came out and talked to him about all the crazy stuff that I did.
Well, like
And
we said, most of the time people get ridiculed for that kind of thing.
right,
So
yeah,
when people like you and I are out there that want to hear these stories and want to, give them a safe place to voice their stories, tell their side of what they experience, it opens it up for them. It gives them something that they can feel safe at and tell the truth.
Yeah, yeah. Like you're saying, people come up to you and talk to you, and that you wouldn't have expected. There was a time when I didn't talk about this openly. I didn't necessarily hide it, but I didn't talk about it openly. Now everyone and their mama knows what I do and talk about, and it just makes it so much more fun for me.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
I've gone places and talked to people and gotten stories I would have never gotten. I had a guy make a decal for my truck one day, and when I went to go pick it up, he was like, "Hey, what's going on with this Bigfoot?" And I told him that I go out looking for Bigfoot, researching, and he started telling me stories about his family that they had Bigfoot on their property, and they'll come up in the middle of the night and looking through their windows and stuff.
Wow.
So yeah, it was pretty cool, man.
And that's why I like social media as well. Because I mean, now it's not just localized like I used to get. Now, I mean, I
Yeah,
have an email that people anywhere in the world you can
yeah,
reach me at.
yeah. I've been lucky enough. I talked to people from the UK, from Australia, Ireland on
Yep.
this show. So yeah, it's fun, man. You get to connect and just make new friends, and the majority of the people you come across are really great people. You know,
Yeah. And
so,
not the crazy tinfoil hat wearing people that is stereotyped. These are
yeah,
average people who have had extraordinary experiences.
yeah. And Walter, I asked Walter one time about going out. He said he probably would never gone out or continue to go out if I hadn't dragged him along. So now he's hooked. This guy goes out all the time now, looking and setting up recorders, and even one of his friends now can't wait for us to go out. They want to hang out with us too, so it's pretty fun.
Good.
Yeah. Well, cool, man. Hey, tell us a little bit more about your podcast before we go away and tell people how to find your stuff, man.
Okay. Well, it's called Within the Mist Podcast. What we do is we pick a different cryptid, ghost, or other mystery each week. And I provide background information on the subject, different stories of the encounters. Then we go over the possible theories of both negative and positive, and then leave it open for our listeners to make the decisions on what they listen to.
Right.
Some of the subject areas we've gone over include the skunk ape, Robert the doll, Bloody Mary, the Greenbrier ghost. So we've been kind of bouncing around between ghosts and cryptids, mainly because cryptids is my favorite, but my wife is a horror writer, and
Oh,
she's
that's,
actually been published. So the ghosts are more of her forte.
hmm,
So we're kind of trying to cover the entire spectrum.
that's cool. I like it. Where can they find her books if people are interested in looking for her books?
They are on Amazon. Her name is Goldie Ann Brand, or you can go to the Within the Mist podcast page, and there's a link to her books there.
Are you guys on YouTube also?
We just started uploading all of our podcasts onto YouTube. It's our hope that we'll be able to start adding original contact, like when we go to visit locations. We want to start adding those videos as well. So that's kind of on the bucket list for 2022.
Nice.
Uh,
Yeah. I actually have another podcast I'm gonna come up with. It had nothing to do with cryptids and stuff like that. It's something kind of personal. I'll
oh,
tell you about it
definitely.
when we get off the air here. But uh, yeah, man. But dude, thanks a lot for joining the show, man. I appreciate it. You did a great job, man. And if I
Well,
can
this
ever
is
help
great.
you
It's
out,
my first
yeah,
time.
yeah. If I can ever help you out, man, let me know. Go to my. I've got the Beyond the Woodline fan page and the Beyond the Woodline podcast page. You can the fan page would probably be better. That's where I have more people, so you can
Okay.
join that. And if you want to post your stuff, man, go ahead. Share whatever you want to share over there.
Yeah, our fan page. What we basically do is I have an app. It's called Every Day's a Holiday.
Mhm.
And so what I do is I look at that, like today's Veterans Day. So we did a post about the 5 most haunted battlefield locations. So each day I try and post something that's connected to the holiday of the day.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, like tomorrow is actually the anniversary of the very first photo of the Loch Ness Monster.
Really?
Yes.
That is
Not the
awesome,
surgeon
man.
photo, not the famous surgeon photo, but the very first photo ever taken of the Loch Ness Monster.
Okay,
The anniversary is tomorrow.
dude, join my fan page and post that. That'd be very cool.
Absolutely. I will make sure I
Yeah,
do that as soon as we get off
yeah.
here.
And everyone else, thanks for participating in the chat room. And
Yes.
Walter, I know you're a veteran, so thank you for your service, brother. And Gary, thank you again, and for your service, and everyone else, all the veterans out there, thank you very much. I appreciate it, everything you've done, all the sacrifices you guys have made. And that will end it. And good night, everybody. And Gary, hold on one second.
Not a problem.